Okay, time for another scraping escape. In this case, strong side, overhook side, choke side, whatever nomenclature you prefer. We're either on this side already or we've been driven to this side. One thing that we should note right off the bat is there's a tremendous difference between this version, let's just rotate so you can see your elbow position, between this version where Rory's got his elbow on the mat and he's in good base and he's got a lot of mobility, and the version where he's on his triceps. This is much easier for me to escape. I mean, for both the reasons that he's got diminished base. So just like when we talked about the mount transition in the other video, in the previous video, if Rory wants to go to mount now, it's really damn difficult. If Rory's on his elbow and he wants to go to mount, it's just a matter of, he's already there. He's just transferring his feet. So understand that how we arrived here, you know, if we just woke up like this, which Rory and I maybe have in the past, this would be a lot easier. Whereas if we woke up like this, you know, anyway. So just know that because we won't usually appear here, we're gonna be, you know, in some fashion going this way. While we're using that, you know, if you haven't watched the previous video, the first thing is don't die. So blocking grip, C grip, Y grip, whatever you want to call it, as close to the hand as possible. If somebody's making a seatbelt, their hand won't be available, so it'll be usually at the wrist that we're gripping, and then we're making a hooking grip so that we can combine forces to oppose the arm coming around our neck. So we're starting with that grip. As Rory's going to the mat, if his elbow can stay above my shoulder, he's going to be able to go into base very easily. However, so let's say you've got the arm already above my shoulder. If I can, and I want to pull this arm away from me anyway, if I can go like this and then drive him over onto his shoulder, just that act will make everything easier for me. If we end up where he's landed on his elbow, this is now just, like I said, it's infinitely harder, but we'll cover it in a second. Let's just say we ended up here. I want to be driving my hips in the air and rotating into him. And I actually want to be, like, I know we want to tuck our chin because we don't want to get choked. So we're bringing our shoulder, left shoulder in this case, where his right arm is over my right shoulder. My left shoulder is coming tight. I can't expose my elbow though, because the biggest threat in using this scraping escape here is not so much the choke on this arm, it's the arm triangle transition that he can make into the mount or the reverse Ezekiel or any of those things that involve this shoulder being caught. So I want to shrug my shoulder, but I want to keep my elbow down and I want to keep my hips elevated. If I do a good enough job of this, I can now let go with this hand. Even if his arm starts to come around.
I don't have the angle. I'm going to choke the side of your neck.
Exactly. So I'm not too worried about that. If he's got a grip on my collar, this is a problem, but as long as I can prevent him from withdrawing this elbow, and I'll be able to do that by accessing his elbow as a lever that's like turning and scraping him off of me as well. As long as I do that, I should be okay.
Head towards the camera. Yep.
There we go. So I'm shrugging, but I'm also closing my elbow as much as possible. Now I can use this arm to either strip the bottom foot. If let's say Rory's a little bit taller than me, I may not be able to get rid of this with just hip angle. So I'll be doing that. I'll be stepping off him, and I'll be accessing this as a lever. Now I'll be taking my arm underneath his leg. Once I've done this, I've secured my arm. No matter how we move, he's not going to be able to arm triangle me. He's also not going to be able to say he's got my collar. He's not going to be able to stop me from going in the direction I need to go to turn away from the choke. So once I get all of this stuff in place, I access this as a lever and I roll my arm underneath, elbow deep. Don't do this. Don't stick your hand in and get caught. Both arms underneath.
Oh, this is super awkward for me.
And now I'm just using this leg as a lever, scraping, 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 scraping. If he wants to get on top, he can't do it. He can't go in the face. I can go at the back, and I've established a guard.
It's interesting how going one different direction is because of that shoulder control, as we talked about, like the weaker open side and the strong kind of more closed side with that overhook, really changes the way that we end up going out.
Yeah, like escaping this is more difficult.
Yeah.
Assuming that we don't have this, stuff we talked about with like the long hook or the body triangle or the lever control on the elbow. This is
both sides are extremely difficult to escape, and each side can have its own different like problems and complications depending on the style of back control that the person wants to play. I know it's much easier to escape my strong side than it is to escape my weak side.
Because you've cultivated it a lot more.
Focus on that side.
Yeah. So let's just quickly mention or go over, if our partner's on their elbow.
No more lever control.
Yeah. So there's like, let's just rotate a little bit more. From here, we're still looking to do the same thing. I'm trying to drive him over onto that shoulder. So the positioning of my legs relative to his is what's going to allow me to achieve that. Because I've got the ability to contract my legs into base and push off and bridge, I should be able to do this. The problem with that is if, use a grapevine here. Yep. And now, yeah. So my legs relative to his legs, depending on our relative height and length, that can be a battle that I'm not actually able to win. If Rory wasn't taller than me and wasn't able to make this grapevine, so just bring your heels in more, that's when I have the advantage. So if you are able to bring this to bear, you can probably knock them over. But also keep in mind that Rory's able to just move. So if I go to do this and he just moves his elbow, and now he's climbing, so he's recognizing that I'm trying to break him down from the back, and so he's just choosing to abandon the back, drive this deeper, and start to go into the mount.
Because I'll be able to still, like I can adjust, I might go back to the other side. The problem with back control is I can force like you into these awful dilemmas because you can really only turn to your left or turn to your right. And then as Rob's trying to go one of these directions, a better guy will be able to adjust and pull you to the other direction to either reset on the same side or pull all the way to the other side before they even have to start to consider how do I bail to stay on top. And it sucks.
So again, you can deal with it. You can try and deal with it if they're in base, if they're on their elbow, but so much better if you just...
And it's really important there when I'm on my elbow there that Rob is bringing his hands up close to protect that jaw because you don't have the ability to just grab that killing hand anymore.
That's right.
And so when we're here, when my hand comes across his chest like this, Rob has his big baseball bat that he's able to grab onto. When my killing hand stays back like this, we can see how Rob doesn't actually have the ability to really get meaningful lever access. And so he can either try and grab it, or he's got to at least make sure that he's protecting the jawline here by bringing his hands up with shrugging his shoulder, having his hand here, so that there's a wall here. Because what I'm going to be looking to do, anyone that you see that's based like this, they're getting ready as well to be able to explode at any point to fire that choke through because Rob's unable to hold on to it in the same way like you can here where now Rob knows he's in no threat. The whole time here, Rob is a little more aware of that potential of the choke coming in fast.
Yeah, this super sucks. I'm looking at like almost, I'm going to say bait you, but encourage you to try to mount me so that you aren't able to create that choke threat. But again, if I overdo that, I just give up the arm triangle. So this is why this is, originally before, I shouldn't say originally, because I'm sure people were doing it a long time ago. But back in the day, the multiple attack series, the dilemmas, the trilemmas were more developed on this side than they were on the other side via the Kimura control and the back triangle threats and all that kind of stuff. So you'd see people and had invested more time in the strong side, and it was tougher to escape. It was more offense. So again, that's changed. It's equal if not greater offense on the other side now. But this is still a very, very difficult position to escape. And one thing I should mention, you will see escape, and I mean we'll kind of cover this in another video, but you will see this idea of like pulling this arm over to the other side, and it can work. Like I said, we'll discuss it in the videos where we're talking about turning into our partner rather than scraping them off of us. But it's very, very difficult. I don't really see that working that often. So just something to keep in mind. We're leading with these escapes because we think they're the better ones.